you have to have the conversation, because if you don't have the conversation, nothing changes.
I was like, I don't think I'm going to go. And Anna was half asleep and she rolled over and said, where's the growth in that?
And you say, well, I don't know if I'm a world changer. Just start adding value to people every day. See how much the world changes.
Welcome back to the Growth Over Comfort podcast. I'm your host, Randy Anderson, joined by Steve Miller.
Ready to go Steve today.
Miller,
Yes, sir.
Ready to hit it. It's a Monday morning. It's exciting. We're in the studio. A lot of fun things have happened in the last week or so, and ready to just chat and just talk more about business and development and all sorts of things. I personally think we're ready to start having guests on, though. Don't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm looking now for some guests.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple. One of them, like most of the people in the country will know. The other one, most of the people in our county will know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Between those two, I think that'd be a good start.
For sure. No, I think that'd be great. Like, that's the thing too, is I've been looking and talking to a few people, but that first guest, you almost want to make it like really special, you know? Yeah. So anyway, we've got some fun things coming up. We'll have some guests on soon. We're far ahead as far as editing and the things go. So what I mean by that is, like, we're asking y'all to leave comments and questions and stuff, and we're about to actually release those episodes where we started doing that. So soon we'll be able to see if you guys had some comments and questions 100%. And stuff.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to answering questions. And one of the big things is, we talk a lot about different issues and things that people are dealing with, but we're not the world-renowned leaders on growth.
Right. No, not at all.
And we're sure not. I'm a lot better at comfort than I am on growth right now. So, but we're moving into that. So, some questions, comments, that people leave sure to help.
Oh, for sure. It's funny. Over the weekend, we had a birthday party, and we had some good friends come in from out of town, and some other friends that are in town come over. And there was one guy who said, "I love your podcast," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." And he said, "You and Coach Steve do a great job, like breaking down all this stuff and just making me think." And I was like, "Thanks, man." I was like, "What do you specifically like about it?" He goes, "Well," he said, "to be fair, I look at my life and it made me realize every time in my life when there's a hard thing that comes up, I tend to choose the comfortable route." And I was like, okay. Like, he gave me some examples where he didn't want to go to academia school, so he did a trade school instead, which honestly, I think is great. Just to be frank. And then, like, he chose a job because it was like a nice salary and with benefits and with a reputable company, and versus something that was more risky. That he's actually now looking at something more risky, because he said, every time he's chosen comfort, he's found out that he actually is unfulfilled and not happy about it.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, everyone does. Like, we all choose comfort. Like, if you were to speak to the Randy from last year, I was the most comfortable person ever, I was so comfortable.
Did you feel good?
No, not at all.
You say you were comfortable, but did you feel good?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. And I wasn't challenging myself. I was just skating by on stuff. Even taking out the physical aspect of me being close to 300 pounds, taking out the work aspect where I wasn't putting in any hard work towards any of my business ventures or anything. Even being a father or a husband sometimes, like, I would say, nah, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to choose sitting in the chair and not getting down on the floor and playing with my daughter. Like, I would choose that regularly. Since then, a year has passed, and 75 Hard, Live Hard program, choosing growth more often. I'm not going to say every time, but it changes everything. Like, you step into, like, how can I be the best husband I can be? And I don't choose that every time. I mess up still, but I choose it 100% more than I used to. For sure. And just deciding not to take selfish actions and stuff. But anyway, I told the guy, like, you're still young. Like, me and him are both still young. Like, everyone's still young. Coach, you're still young. Like, really?
Right.
You've still got plenty of time to do the most important work of your life.
Right.
So I said, like, you want to start this thing and start looking at steps to do it, and start figuring out how to do it and make that swap over happen. And if you want to still stay at your comfortable job, that's fine, because, like, it's actually, you've got a family. It's smart to still be able to provide from them, but that means you're going to have to give somewhere else. That means you're going to have to give away sleep. It means you're going to have to give away family time. I mean, there's going to be a trade-off. But anyway, it was really encouraging to hear, because he's a good friend of mine, because he would tell me the truth. He'd be like, this is a terrible podcast. It was nice to hear that he liked it. And the other funny thing about the weekend was there was a common theme of, now that we have started this podcast about choosing growth, anytime that I sit down in a chair, someone will be like, is that choosing growth, Randy, over there sitting down, taking a break? And I'm like, stop. Or like Anna, my wife, will say, like if I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do blah, blah, blah. And she'll be like, this is her thing. She actually said this before we started this podcast. She used to use this quote, where's the growth in that?
Oh,
I went to a community group. I started going to a community group, a small group back, and this is like 8 years ago. And it met at Panera Bread at 6 a.m. in the morning. And like that's early for me. We've already talked about how I'm a night person. And one morning I got up and it was like 5:45 and I like had to rush to get there if I was going to get there. It was only 2 minutes away, so I could do it. But I was like, I don't think I'm going to go. And Anna was half asleep and she rolled over and said, where's the growth in that? And I was like, dang.
Oh, that stings. There's no fun in that.
No.
Yeah.
So guess what? I went.
Right.
Anyway, so that's actually been the funny quote that she uses. She's used plenty of times, but now she's using it more because of the Growth Over Comfort
Because
podcast.
of the podcast.
Yeah.
And one of mine from this weekend, and it's really strange how stuff works in your life and where stuff comes from for you to get better and grow. One of mine, I told you I listened to the podcast, last week on Wednesday. I think I sent you a text, maybe even called you, and I'm like, all right, that's very disappointing because I'm not sure I'm doing and I know I'm not doing all of those things. There's a ton of growth that's happening in my life. There's a lot of things that's moving and changing in my life, but not in all the areas that need to move.
Yeah.
So this week we started working on a garage, moving stuff out of the garage, and we're cleaning up the garage, and we're making it. And we've lived there now for almost a year, and we still have stuff in some boxes in the garage that we were able to get out. And I'm thinking to myself, this only took about 2 hours, and we've had a lot of 2 hours over a year that we could have just gotten this done, and then we could just enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
Now there's room to walk back from one side of the car to the truck, and I'm like, it's simple.
And there's only 2 hours.
It's only 2 hours
Yeah.
to enjoy the rest of it. But it took a year in this podcast, the last episode that we actually released, for me to go, you're talking about your garage and somebody else's garage being messy. You're not even paying attention to yours. I'm like, ugh. So all that stuff comes into play.
The funny thing about that is that same episode, I'm pretty sure I mentioned a messy desk. Like, is your desk messy? And you said that stepped on Cindy's toes, right?
It did.
Well, you said that it stepped on her toes, and you sent that text to me. I'm sitting at my desk at home, cluttered, so cluttered. And so I thought, you know what? It took me 20 minutes to clean it up. That was it.
Right.
And I feel so much better about it. And so now I'm like, every week I'm at least going to take 10 minutes to make sure it's clean still. And then my goal is to every day just take 5 minutes. If you just take 5 minutes to make sure it's clean, put things away that get there, Because it's like you can either choose to let it pile up and do the longer maintenance, or you can do shorter maintenance throughout. And there's a cost to each,
Yeah,
it makes you think of cars. Like if you were to make sure your oil is changed regularly, well, first off, oil is a bad example because if you don't do that, it's going to break immediately, But tire rotation is a good example.
Yeah.
Most people probably don't think about tire rotation and all that, but it'll make your tires last a lot longer.
Right. And if you're talking about buying tires every 3 years as opposed to every 5 years, that's a significant expense. And all you had to do was get them changed, every 5,000-6,000 miles, get them rotated, and you'd be fine.
Yeah.
And that's a little thing, in our life that we're talking about. And I'm dealing with what you just talked about right now. Not so much my weight, but my body composition is not exactly where I would like for it to be. I'm more concerned about body composition than I am weight. And the path for me to get to where I'm at was comfort, was ease. And I say that because I was about 80% right. I was doing the workout stuff, and about 80% of my diet was right, and 20% was really wrong. And the 20% that's really wrong kept me where I was. I told you I've been fighting to find a 2 and a 9, to go from 235 to and 231 and stuck in that. And, I was working and working and working. And I finally, a week ago, I told Cindy, I said, I'm done. I'm making a decision. I'm done. I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore. I'm going to continue to work out and do my workouts like I've been doing my workouts. But I'm significantly changing my diet.
Oh, wow.
Like a total shift for 90 days.
Nice.
I said at the end of the 90 days, I'll evaluate and see where that's at. When I started last Tuesday, I weighed 235. This morning, I weighed 224.
Oh, wow.
So it will not continue to be that rapid.
Yeah.
But over the 90-day period, there will be a significant change in how I look and feel.
Yeah.
All because I made a decision that I'm completely done with that. I'm finished with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be that anymore. I think that's probably the biggest thing in growth. And the thing that allowed me to get there was this podcast. I literally am up reading my Bible and studying every day. So in the Bible, there's all kind of things that challenge. And then I'm legitimately spending time with quality nonfiction growth books. And in those, it's like so challenging. I mean, I'm listening and reading things and I'm going, oh goodness, I don't know what kind of human I can be, but if I'll do those things, there's no way I'm not better.
Yeah.
At the end. The Bible clearly teaches that, all work works. And, moving into that is such a big thing. So I get it. And, I'm growing. I told you last week I was struggling. I'm not struggling as bad this week.
Awesome.
I'm turning the corner a little bit, which means, unfortunately, from this weekend, learning what I learned this weekend, I need to take a different road and find something hard.
Yeah, you got to keep the struggle up, right?
Yeah.
If you're not struggling, then, I think I've used this analogy before, but Hermosi says it's like running at different altitudes. If you run here in the South, now the humidity is something, but it's different than if you run like in Boulder, Colorado, or wherever altitude's higher. But eventually you get used to it. Your body adapts.
Your body adapts to it. There's a couple of things in that, the butterfly story, where you take the caterpillar and it makes the cocoon and it's struggling to get out. If you cut that, the butterfly doesn't develop its wings and it can't fly.
Yeah.
So you can't help it out of the struggle. All too often we want to help people. I think it's something that people do to their kids.
Yes.
Especially,
I was just thinking that.
Especially today where, you want to help your kid. You want your kid to succeed. You want your kid to be great. But you see them struggle and you go, well, I'm going to help them.
Yeah.
All right, I told them to pick up their toys and put all their toys in the basket. I'm just going to be a good example for them and help them get all their toys in the basket because that looks hard.
Yeah.
No, let them put all their toys in the basket. The little rugrat took them all out.
Yeah, yeah.
Let them put them all back in.
Yep.
Let them struggle through some things that are hard. Don't put them in a position where they're going to be harmed mentally or physically, but put them in a position where they have to struggle to get through. So that's a great example. And then I heard another one. This weekend I was listening, and Steve Furtick was talking on a podcast I was listening to, and he said that they were doing an offering early in their ministry. They were trying to raise $3 million for a mission project they were doing. And he talked to his chief financial guy that was kind of over everything, talking about that. And he said, well, what do you think? He said $1 million would be rough on us. We'd have a hard time funding. $2 million would be really good. $3 million would be great. It would be a miracle. And we would be able to do everything that God needs us to do. He said the very next year, very same date, for this very same offering, for the very same mission project that they were going to fund, their goal was $6 million.
Wow.
But listen to what he said. He asked the guy, he said, all right, tell me where we're at with the project. $3 million would be a disaster. $2 million would be good.
Yeah.
$5 million would be good.
Yeah.
$6 million would be, a miracle would be great.
Perfect.
God could really run and do what he needs to do with us.
Yeah.
And he said in that, what he realized was when we start to grow, when we start to move, when we start to change, what we thought was a win, the new plateau for us, that's a disaster for us.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, we talked about growing this podcast and making a difference and making an impact. And, that we're growing through this podcast. We hope everybody sees us grow inside of this podcast.
Yeah.
And see what a podcast looks like as it grows. A year from now, we're going to look at this and go, oh, man, if we did that again, that's a disaster.
Yeah. 100%.
We can't even be on that level anymore. And so many guys are already over there. And, again, we talked about it, but looking at them over there and seeing them over there, it just means that we move there. In growth. So it's kind of a neat concept, neat weekend for me and the growth side. Sounds like it was for you too.
Yeah, no, it was for sure. And it was a great weekend. Last week was interesting too, also from this aspect. And this is actually what I wanted to ask you about, but that was just so good. I was fine letting it rolling. Like all of that, just a conversation back and forth, but just kind of to put a cap on it, here's a question that I have. How do you have the awkward conversations with people? like when in business. Let me just say this. I'm a really nice guy. And I realize that my nicety, or whatever that word is, my character of being nice, like how I'm being kind to everyone, can get me in trouble business-wise. Because if I were to say, be like, oh yeah, I can let you use the studio to record blah, 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 whatever for free, not a problem. But I believe in goodwill about doing that sometimes. But if you do that every time, you end up broke, basically.
Right.
Another example is Andy Frisella, who starts 75 Hard and blah, blah, blah. We've talked a lot about Andy. He has an example about a guy wants to start a bar. And he's like, I want to start a bar. I love hanging out with my friends at a bar. I want to be a bar. And, that's his example. I don't hang out at bars. And so he ends up starting a bar because he wants his friends to hang out there. For me, it'd be a coffee shop is more like it. Let's use that example. So I would start a coffee shop because I love coffee and I love all my friends. Everybody come hang out at the coffee shop, Randy's Coffee Shop. Woo. Well, everyone's there and they're all my friends. Can I have this coffee for free, Randy? Yeah, sure. You end up going broke because you're not able to tell your friends, that coffee cost you $3. Sorry, you have to pay it, Yeah. So how do you have the hard conversations sometimes when you don't want to have those? And I know it depends wildly on what the conversation's about.
It depends a lot on what the conversation is. But I think it goes back to standards. It goes back to values that you have set. And it goes back to the type person that you want to be. There's a difference in kindness and being nice.
Yeah.
You can be nice to people all day, and you can show kindness all day. You can work in those areas and grow in those areas and move in those areas and still be able to sit over here and go, I have these standards set.
Yeah.
And these are the standards, and we're going to live by these standards. Mm-hmm. And then if somebody violates that standard, doesn't mean that you have to rant and rave and pitch a fit. It doesn't mean that it has to affect your character or who you are.
Yeah.
It just simply means that you're able to have the conversation. You're able to look and go, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is why we do it this way.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you're able to move people, in my opinion, way more than you're able to move them on the other side. And it's not the carrot and stick thing. It's a personality thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the most successful coaches I've ever seen, if you look at them, you think they were mean. No, they were not. They actually loved the people enough to go, no, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
We do it this way so that you can be successful. And if you're successful, then the team can be successful.
Yeah.
They're not kind when they say it. They're not nice when they say it, but they communicate it in a way that person understands and expects to be that way. But I think you have to have the conversation, because if you don't have the conversation, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. Mm-hmm. Because that other person doesn't even know.
They're still going on their merry way.
Randy just loves me. Yeah. I love hanging out with Randy and drinking coffee. Man, it's the best thing ever. Yeah. Every morning I go by, I love seeing Randy. Randy's smiling. Randy's happy.
Yep.
But the coffee shop closed last week. I don't know what happened to the coffee shop.
Yeah, it turns out he wasn't making any money.
Turns out he wasn't making any money on coffee.
He let all his friends drink for free.
Right. And there's a time and a place for that, and it depends on what God calls you to. There's some people in the world that are called to, say, hey, listen, this is my coffee shop, and I've set this up so that people can come and have a place. Yeah. And that's God's calling, and that's where they put their finances and money. And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But if it's your business, it's in your livelihood, and it's what you're doing, you need to make sure that you take care of it. Yeah. And you need to make sure that you handle it. My brother owns a business, and my brother charges according.
Right.
Like he's in business.
Yeah, it's a business.
Yes. They came out and part of his deal is a septic service, and they came out and pumped our septic tank. It was what it cost.
Yeah, just because he's your brother, he didn't give you.
Hey, can you just ride out here and pump my tank? No.
That took him away from some other client.
Took him away from family, time. He understands his time. He understands how important it is, and he understands he's in business.
Yeah.
Now, if he wanted to give me that, that's fine. But I think it's how you value people and how you realize how important people are.
Yeah.
And how important it is for that conversation to take place so that person can grow. If you came in here a month from now and you've gained 20 more pounds, and I ask you before we started this podcast, hey, Randy, what's going on? You look like I'm not going to work out anymore. I'm not going to eat right. I'm not going to do these things. Mm-hmm. Then we would honestly, on the podcast, probably have the conversation of we're growth over comfort podcast.
Yeah.
If we're not going to do the things that we're talking about on the podcast, we don't need to do the podcast.
Yeah. That's
And you would
exactly
look at me and go, well, I don't want to do the podcast. Or you would go, yeah, you're right.
Make a choice.
I've got to make a decision. And I think that's really important. But when you're talking about kindness, being kind is different than being nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice people get stepped on.
Yeah.
Kind people are able to move things. Mother Teresa was kind. I'm sure if you met her, you would think she was nice. But Mother Teresa ran several multi-million-dollar companies.
Yeah.
She wasn't always nice.
She
There
couldn't
were
have
some
been.
conversations in that were rough.
Yeah.
But she had those so that she could continue to minister on the way that she wanted to minister.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
I think two things to add to that, actually. One of them is that if you are being kind to someone or something, you can still find value in ways.
Yes.
Like, so there's still value in certain things that I'm trying to relate it to the coffee analogy.
Yeah.
If I did give someone a discount and I told them, here's the discount or this one's free on me, there's some sort of value for that. Like, let's say someone came in and it was another business owner and they had just given me enough material to make all these banners for a huge event I had coming up.
Right.
And like, I still paid them for that. But then on top of that, they said like, hey, this job usually takes this amount of time. We're going to do it in this amount of time and make sure the banners are great. They helped me out. So my value back is, hey man, thank you so much. Here's some free coffee plus here's a $20 gift card. Whatever, I don't know. It's probably not equal, but you see what I'm saying? Like there's an equal value in certain things like that.
I think one of the things that people miss is adding value to people is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
If someone adds value to you and you take time to send a personal thank you card and maybe throw a $5 Starbucks card in there,
Yeah.
say, I really appreciate it. I understand what you did. I can't repay you for what you did, but I just want you to know that I recognize it.
Yeah.
Changes the world.
It
That's
really
where
does.
the world changes. That's where you never know when you add value, where it comes back and how it comes back. All Jesus did while he was here was add value.
Mm-hmm.
He never took. He always added.
Yeah.
And, you look at it and you think, well, they killed Jesus. They nailed him to a cross. Are you telling me, Steve, that if I just keep adding value to people that they're going to nail me to a cross? Probably not. But if you keep adding value to people, you'll change the world.
Yeah. 100%.
And you say, well, I don't know if I'm a world changer. Just start adding value to people every day. See how much the world changes.
Yeah.
And you never know who the person is. And I know I've talked a lot, but this is important. The movie The Blind, Phil Robertson, his story about how life changed for him and how Jesus changed his life. Jesus completely changed who he was. Mm-hmm. He's not the same person he was before he met Jesus as his Lord and Savior. So in that, his sister made the statement to the pastor that was going to witness to him, if you can win Phil, he'll lead thousands to Jesus. Well, think about that for a minute. In anything that we do, we never know when we come in contact and add value to somebody's life, have something that we do that's just nice for somebody. Somebody may leave you and go, that was such an impact on my life, the thing that Randy did for me today, that I'm going to help John over here. Mm-hmm. And then John helps Bill, who goes out and helps Jan,
Yeah.
whose child sees that and goes to their school and does something at their school that the principal sees that leads to their superintendent. Mm-hmm. That completely changes how education works.
Yeah.
It could be a whole nother program that changes and helps tons of people and kids, and you're looking at it and going, well, all I did was help him, move his boxes from one side of the room to the other.
Yeah. It's a ripple.
It wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people call that, back to butterflies, a butterfly effect.
Hey, it's a butterfly day.
Yeah, there you go. The other thing I was going to say too about having hard conversations is I think a lot of people, when they're having those hard conversations, don't know when to stop talking and just say what you say and stop talking. There's a sales book that I've been looking at, and they talk about how you are talking with the person and then you present your price and then you shut up. Mm-hmm. Because everything else that happens is on their end, and they're going to come up with objections or resistance, and it's fine. You can come up with that. But if you end up going like, yeah, so our price to do this is, $7,500, and we can do it, blah, blah, blah. And they don't say anything at first, and you're like, but we also offer package discount rates. You've instantly lowered yourself, you know, immediately.
Yeah.
When in reality, they might have just been about to say sold,
Right.
you know, which means you actually should have raised your price, because if they agreed that quickly, you know.
Right. I follow Myron Golden, who's, you know, one of the leading, you know, content producers, and he's an expert in packaging a concept and monetizing the concept. And his deal with price is it's the price.
It is the price.
He said, I've had people call and ask and do, and he's like, I understand the value of what I bring. And if they don't understand that, that's fine. And I think in conversations, especially hard conversations, it's the price. So in other words, if we're sitting across the table from each other and I'm your boss, I'm dealing with you on an issue, and I go, this is where we are. This is the next step. This is what happens. You need to understand the price of that. If I'm a boss that tries to explain everything and make you feel better and everything's just good, and then I'm like, hey, just stop doing this and, you know, we're going to be okay, then you're going to go right back and continue that action. You're going to get fired 6 months from now.
Yeah.
If
when,
I'm the
when
one,
the boss eventually has the courage just to be like, you're fired.
yeah, he's just going to get frustrated and let you go.
Yeah.
But if you're dealing with somebody that's great, they're going to go, this is where you are. Randy, you were doing this today. You know, this is a complete violation of our standards and policies, and this is the next step.
Yeah.
And like you said, at that point, there's nothing else to say.
Yeah. Just like, that's it. Just stop. Just stop talking and let them process
The
it.
excuse they have doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
The attitude they have doesn't matter.
No.
Their response doesn't matter. There's nothing beyond that. This is where we are. And you're like, well, that's hard. That's cut and dry. That's the best thing you can do for another person.
Yeah.
Is let them know clearly where the boundaries are and what's going on. That's the hard conversation.
Yeah. I think also doing this podcast has helped me realize that the words I speak, the phrases I say, because I end up seeing them again when I edit this, or I'll say when my amazing editors edit it.
Yeah,
but I end
right.
up watching it again, and I'll just be like, come on, quit talking. You know, like, say what you need to say, period.
Yeah. But then we can't talk, and it's not long, and we run out of words.
I know. But I just mean for each subject, you know, like I think in the beginning I would keep trying to elaborate on something over and over and over again. And I ended up finding out that I was just saying the same thing in a different way when I'd already made my point. There's more impact if you just say it once, say it just like you mean it, period.
And we both dealt with people that can't stop talking.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
They just keep talking.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, stop. Just stop talking.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes their talk is just full of meaningless nothing. Like, you know, they're not going to take action, you know? So you're tired of hearing them talk about it, you know? I can't tell you how many times I have heard someone, they see me do something and they're like, that's so great that you did that. I'd love to do that one day, blah, blah. And I look at them and like, why not today? Start today.
I love our workout stuff, and this is going to sound like a brag. It's not. Trust me, it's not. Because we've missed 2 or 3 days in the last couple of weeks. But the guy that I work out with for the last 5-6 years, we've worked out at 5 in the morning, 4 to 5 days a week. So I'm going to say on average 4 days a week. And over that time period, there's 13 people that have come to join us.
Wow. Yeah.
Some of them have lasted a couple of months. Some of them have lasted a couple of days. But I think the number's 13. And every time they're like, oh, this is awesome. We're going to be here. And now I'm like, the next one will be number 14. I'll be like, no, you're not going to be here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they say anymore. The first 5 or 6, we were shocked that they wasn't coming. Like, where's Jimmy? We would call and check to see if we could find him. And we, you know, and then it was like, well, he's not coming. And then it's like, well, he's not going to come tomorrow either. And then he's not coming.
Yeah. Jimmy's gone.
Yeah, we've lost him. But now, you know, like I said, the next one that shows up, it'll be just like, well, they're not here. We won't even question why they're not there.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll just be they're not coming.
Yeah.
So
That's good. Well, speaking of being there next week, we will be here next week as well. We keep recording these and keep putting these out. Thank you guys so much for listening to them. Thank you for listening to this episode, watching this episode. Make sure you follow, like, or subscribe, or wherever you're at, and do all the things. Check us out on social media. Chat with us. Leave your comments and questions there, and we'll chat back with you, and we'll talk with you soon. Make sure you choose growth. Choose growth. I mean, as much as you can. You know, you got to choose a comfortable bed to lie in every night. I keep coming back to that. You choose a comfortable bed to lie in every night, but otherwise you got to get up and choose growth.
Love it.